So I don't want to like, we're here for an interview, but I could talk to you about like anything. It feels
We could
like.
probably kiki for like 4 hours and you'd be like, okay, thanks so much for having
Okay,
me. And
thanks,
people are
guys.
like, I learned nothing about the book, but I just got so many great playlist recommendations. And then I guess I want to do karaoke with them. And yeah, that'll
Right.
be our next event. We'll do the book event and then we'll be like, okay, anyone who wants to party with us, we're going to
You can come hang,
karaoke.
right? Because we're
We're
cool.
ordering Geo. I actually would love that.
Wait, are you a Giordano's girl? Don't play with me, Tomi. Don't make me shout. Don't make me Holy Ghost shout because I will. I have an affinity for people who like Giordano's over Lou Malnati's, over stop. And you eat the deep dish because that's how it's supposed to be done. Wait till I tell my mom. She's gonna freak. I just told her, I'm like, I'm so excited. We're like talking, and she's like, what are you gonna ask? And I'm like, well, I already have my questions, but I want to get to know her first. Wait till I tell her
Yes.
you're from
Yes.
Chicago and you like deep
Yes.
dish.
And we're doing a book event together.
And we're doing a book event. Now that I did not
Yes.
predict, but I am
I
so
didn't
game.
predict that either, but I'm so, because that's what I was like, they were like, do you want to do it this? And I was like, honestly, I was like, I just want to connect with my people in this
Yeah.
space who I love online and who I've like, some people I've loved for years. Some people it's like, I just discovered them, but I was like,
Yeah.
so I was like, I just kind of want it to be organic connections. And so I connect, and you're like Chicago. So I will
Yep.
like, I'll literally say, we'll link. Like, if you're available on that date, then
I'm
like, it would be a
available.
dream
If I
to be on a
wasn't
stage with
available,
you.
I would make
You're
myself
like, I will be
available. Are you
available.
kidding me?
Okay, I'm honestly, I am so, you have no idea how happy I am. Um,
Yay!
so yeah, we'll meet, we'll do the thing, we'll maybe
We'll do the
then just get
things.
like Geo and like some vino.
That's a that's
Um,
that that sounds like a plan.
yeah, that
Okay.
sounds very fun
So
for me.
I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions because we're gonna
Ask
talk for the next
away.
like 3 hours, and
Yes.
the recording, everything's gonna shut off and it's gonna be like, sorry, battery low. But I'm so excited to sit down with you. I know a lot about you through the interviews that you've already done, and obviously from just being a fan of you and your work. But I'm excited for my listeners to kind of get to know you and know what you've
Yeah.
been doing. I've talked about you on the podcast before. I've talked about the books on the podcast before, so they're no stranger to you and your
Yes.
work. But I'm excited. I'm excited. So I'm gonna just jump
Yeah.
in if that's
Let's
okay.
do it. Let's go for
Okay.
it.
Okay. So jumping right in. Growing up, did you always have this dream to become a writer? And at what point did you realize that writing was the career path that you wanted to take?
Yeah, and it's what I love about like I don't know if it's like interview season or like marketing season is like I actually have like all the photographic evidence of everything pulled up because I I will say this dream was put in my heart and it showed itself even before I knew what was happening because like these are the stories I wrote as a kid,
Oh my
like the
gosh.
blue one, and I know
Oh,
like the it's so hard for the camera to like focus on a screen,
yeah,
but
I can
like
see.
the blue one, that's it's 35 pages. It's the
Mm.
first story I ever wrote. No one told me to do it. It wasn't an assignment from a teacher or a parent. It's like I wanted a horse because I was reading the Saddle Horse Club books. I wanted a twin because I was obsessed with Lindsay Lohan's Parent Trap. And then I
Ooh.
wanted saris because I like instead of watching the Disney movies, I would say with the exception of like a couple viewings of Mulan,
Mm-hmm.
my Disney movie was Kabhi Khushi Kabhie Gham, which is this like
Mm.
classic Bollywood film.
Okay.
And it's this like almost 3 hours and it's so beautiful. The women are goddesses. Their saris are amazing. And like the motion and the color. So I really wanted a sari. So I asked my parents for all three of these things. I was like, I want a horse and a twin and a sari. And they were like, no horse, no twin, maybe a sari. I did get the
Ooh.
sari, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for me. So I went to like it was a big Microsoft desktop. It's like this was still floppy disk era, and if you don't know what that is,
Oh no, I
yeah,
know. I know.
Yeah, because it's like
Okay.
sometimes I'm talking to kids and they're like, "Oh, what?" And I'm
Nope.
like,
And you
you
have to
know, you're
like blow it sometimes, like
yes."
yep.
And but they were precious and they were kind of cool
Yeah.
and it was red. Oh, I'm just so sad they're gone. But I just started typing a 35-page story, single space, two twins, parents separated at birth, 10-year-old geniuses named Marilyn and Carolyn. They meet at pre-orientation for Hubbard University because I couldn't say Harvard. And they're like, oh my God, they have that moment of like, we're separated twin sisters. We got to get our
Yeah.
parents back together. So then the rest of the story takes place that summer on a horse farm with them trying to get their parents back together while they're wearing all my favorite outfits from Kabikushi Kabigam. So like beautiful saris and then like red leather crop top with red pants because if you know, you know.
Oh yeah.
I feel like we can't say that now, but if you do know,
Right.
you know I'm talking about Pooja's outfit and You Are My Sonia.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is specific. Anyway, and then by the end of the story, instead of it being like Marilyn and Carolyn, it's like, and Tomi galloped on the black stallion to save
Okay.
it from itself. And she called out to her twin, Tomi, help me. Okay, Tomi. And so it was really just like love.
Right.
So it's always been in me because no one taught me to do that. No one told me to do that.
Yeah.
Like it's a compulsion. And
Yeah.
even like, okay, I don't want to mess up the lighting.
Oh
So if
no,
I
you're
mess up the
good.
lighting, but like even right now, like I just finished. Ooh, I know my lighting's gonna get upset with me. Ugh, I know it's gonna get upset with me. Okay. Um.
Oh wow. Oh my
So
gosh.
what you're witnessing is my fourth novel, and I
Okay.
finished the first draft of that last week, and
Oh
so
my
that doesn't have
gosh.
anything to do with the Children of Blood and Bone world. Um,
Wow.
but that's to say like it is a compulsion. I need
Yeah.
it. And it's funny, I was talking to someone earlier today because they were like, why fantasy?
Yeah.
And I was like, if you'd asked me that at the start of my series like 7 years ago, I'd be
Mm-hmm.
like, fantasy is all there is.
Yeah.
I do think in an interview, I was like, what am I going to write about in the real world? Adults doing
Right.
taxes?
Yeah.
Like I said, like dumb shit like
Which
that.
sucks,
So
by the way.
I was
Sucks.
like, there's nothing to write about. And then, but now I look at it and I'm like, oh, I needed fantasy to cope. I couldn't cope with
Mm.
the real world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, because that first story took place in this world, but like
Yeah.
almost every story after that was a fantasy world. And so I think I really just couldn't cope with existing in the world as it was. So
Yeah.
fantasy became like my safe nook. This was my safe place. Whereas the fourth book, the outline I just showed you, it's like that takes place in the real world again. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, oh, psychologically, Tomi can be here. She's
Right.
okay
Right.
here.
Yeah.
She can stand here. She can thrive here.
Yeah.
It's she can live here.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to escape anything. In
Yeah.
fact, she's interested in learning more and
Mm-hmm.
connecting more and peeling back these layers and it's not, I mean, the world feels a lot more brutal than it did when I was escaping in fantasy, but
Yeah.
still I want to be here.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting that you say that because I feel like as a reader, we will read to escape, but that for you, that's like writing is your escape.
Yes.
And that's so cool though.
Yeah, I need it. I need it.
Yeah.
It's like I know I use the Pokemon reference, but it's like it is my Pokeball. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, Pikachu can run wild for a while, even though I feel like I'm giving more Clefairy vibes, but that's up to the audience. I but like when I'm creating something, it's
Yeah.
like that I'm inside my Pokeball
Yeah.
and that is it's I don't know if you had this experience. Maybe you did because you were a Chicago kid,
Okay.
but like every once a year when I was a kid, they used to bring in like this big dome and they would project the constellations on it and we would all lie
Oh.
down.
No, we did like like the huge parachute thing in
Yeah, yeah,
school.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
about as cool as my school got.
Okay.
So,
That for me, that's a core memory. It was just like a huge dome. It was so fluffy and I don't remember what they were talking about.
yeah.
And I would usually fall asleep, but it was so fluffy, it was so safe, and you just saw the projected stars. And
Yeah.
that's what it feels like when I'm in a story world. Like,
Mm.
especially this news story, because again, I'm out here.
Yeah.
I'm with the people. I'm outside.
I'm
Like,
outside.
inside, we outside, we're outside. And I'm
I'm
like, yeah, Beyonce,
outside.
I'm outside. So I'm outside,
Yeah,
but it's my safe dome.
for sure.
And yeah, now I know that that's a part of me being here,
Yeah,
like being on this earth. I won't go so big to be like, it's my mission because
right.
I'm like, I feel like that's bigger than me. I feel like that's like sometimes you can be cognizant. I can at least say I very much believe storytelling is my purpose,
Yeah,
but I at least know for Tomi to be Tomi, she
yeah.
has to have a dome and it
Okay.
has to be something that no one knows about.
Yeah.
Like it's
That's
just
beautiful
her and
though.
her world. And then by the time you see this, I'll be in another dome.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful
So,
though.
yeah.
So you have to tell me about the first book that you tried to get published. I
Yes.
kind of have like a little bit of an inkling about it based
Yes.
on previous interviews that you've done, but tell me about your first book that you ever tried to get published. Did it get published, and what was that process like?
Yes. Okay. So it's actually a beautiful story. I was gonna say it's an interesting story, and I'm like, nah, it's actually pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Like now that its own story. So if we back up a little bit from the first story I told you about, that one
Hmm.
was called The Black Champion. That's
Okay.
me and my twin self, me riding a horse and going to Harvard and
Okay.
getting our parents back together in beautiful stories. So the first story I ever wrote, I'm everywhere.
Okay.
In the stories I wrote, and I wrote that around the age of like, it's between 6 and 8. I don't know the exact date,
Okay.
but from around 8 to like 18 for 10 years, when I looked back at all the stories I wrote after that, they were still the adventures I wanted, the
Okay.
things I wanted. If I wanted a great romance or if I wanted to like shoot lightning from my hands or something like that. But the characters were white or they were biracial or they
Mm.
had red hair. Still love red hair. But there's an identity issue there
Yep.
because I wasn't just writing characters who didn't look like me. I was writing what I wished I was like.
Mm.
And I know that's because I felt like an outsider.
Yeah.
In Homewood Flossmoor was diverse, but the elementary school I went to had a majority white population. And
Okay.
then I remember I got to go to Parker Junior High
Okay.
for 6th grade, and that was great because it was super diverse. It was really
Yeah.
fun. But then in 7th grade, I moved to Hinsdale, which was
Okay.
very not diverse. Like
Yeah.
I think our high school had about 3,000 kids, but only about 16 of us were Black.
Okay.
So I was an outsider for the majority of like the only Black kid in class, maybe the only Black kid, like maybe one of 4 Black kids in my
Yeah.
grade. Um, and that bled into my stories because it was like, oh, you don't just want like to shoot lightning from your hands. You
Yeah.
want to be white or you want to be biracial.
Hmm.
That's what is okay. And I realized that around the age of 18 when I was trying to write my college essay. And that's when I noticed the pattern. And I was
Okay.
like, oh, we have to fix this. We have to
Yeah.
fix this
Yeah.
because your subconscious is clearly,
Right.
it's got a megaphone. It's got like I can be the answer. I'm ready to do it. And I'm like, you have a problem. You need to work on this. So, so I started writing The Keepers.
Okay.
And it was the first time I wrote about a character who looked just like me.
Yeah.
So I had to lovingly describe dark brown skin. I had to describe what like a big 4C mane was and be like,
Okay.
okay, her hair was like a cloud.
Yep.
Like, because it's like we have to find these words
Hmm.
and not just be like, oh, she looked like chocolate.
Right.
Like,
Yep. Yep.
so
Yep.
I was like, if I've been erasing myself out of my own imagination through the stories I write, then I'm going to reteach myself to love myself and put myself front and center in my imagination through the stories I write.
Okay.
So I started The Keepers. It took me about a year to finish the first draft. That was I think my freshman or sophomore year at college, and then a year to finish the second draft.
Okay.
And usually, and it's funny because I guess I kind of did that with the fourth book. I'll write like 10% of the story while I'm inspired, and then I wrote like the other 90% of the story during National Novel Writing Month.
Okay.
So it was like 2 years, but it was like kind of 2.5 months.
Okay.
And then my senior year at college, I had studied English literature at Harvard because I'd wanted to get a creative thesis my senior year,
Okay.
which would be a professor um, basically taking me under their tutelage for a year and like guiding me into writing this book. And then I hoped that book would be published and then maybe launch my career. And it's like, as we hope.
Yep.
And so I did English literature only for the purpose of getting to do a creative thesis. And then I
Okay.
applied my senior year and got rejected.
Mm.
And I was like, and they were like, well, you can write a dissertation and I was like,
Right. Yeah. No.
no, I actually hate writing papers. I hate writing papers. I hate them. I also always hated them because I'm like, whatever I'm saying is BS. You cannot talk. You have to talk to the author.
Yeah.
I can sit here and tell you that, okay, he used this metaphor here and it's actually an allegory for class in Russia in the year 1844. But that's BS.
Right.
I tell any student, whenever any student, like high school, college, middle school, grad school, whenever they like on social media, they're like, oh my God, I'm writing an essay on your thing. I'm like, you get an A. Show your teacher this. You get an A.
Yeah.
And they can't dispute it because I am the source. I am the high, I go full Papa Pope and I'm like, this is my vengeance because I was like, all I am doing is writing lies and you're grading me on them.
You're grading me, right.
These are lies. Who knows why he chose the color blue? But I can write you 18 pages and say the blue is actually, it's a metaphor for the depression that we see in Antigone. No. So I hated that. I'm not writing a dissertation. Anyway, as you can see, I still get really... English was the subject I struggled with the most throughout my entire academic career. So like there's a lot of demons there and I'll work that out in therapy. But for now... if you're writing about my book, you get an A. I give you an A.
Yeah, I'll give
because
you
I said so, and I am the authority and not your teacher. Anyway, let's bring it back to the keepers. Let's bring it back down. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to work on this without academic credit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I wrote like the third draft that year. And so now we're graduating college. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm working my first job. It's like, it's sort of like data-driven marketing at a production studio because this is the age of like, we have so much data. Maybe we can use this data to really target movie marketing. And I remember within the first 2 weeks of being at that job, I ran into this mental wall of like, oh, I don't want to be my boss. Mm. And that was for like a type A Nigerian American, but especially like Nigerian, we're big on the academics.
Yeah.
Overachiever who'd spent the last decade being like, oh my God, I love how Beyonce quoted this interview. It's like, I see it, I want it, I work hard, I get it, I see big, I grind till I want it, I twirl on it. Like besides, I wasn't really twirling on them haters as a child, but I was very much, I see it, I want it. Right. I want to be in that leadership club. I need to do a sport. I'm not athletic. Suddenly I'm on the track team. I got into the leadership club. Okay. I want to be vice president of the school. I'm vice president of the school. I want to make it to state in competitive speech and debate. There. I want to be the producer of the Hasty Pudding theatricals at college. I'm there. I want to walk the show at Eleganza. I'm there. I want to get an A. I'm like, my mom says she was kind of scared of me and for me growing up. Because I was just like so Katniss with it, like bang, bang, bang. And she's like, here's the thing about you. And my sister tells me this too. And now they say it with admiration because I've balanced it out with like self-care and rest and like reality TV. Yeah. But they're like, when you want something, you put your head down and you do not stop till you get it. So I do really resonate with those formation bars. Yep. But for the first time, so that's my whole life. And then I get to this desk and I'm like, I don't want to be my boss. What am I? And that's where you're like, what happens now? Right. Yeah. What was I made for? It's like a little bit Les Mis. And like Billy meets Les Mis. That would actually be great. Anyway, I know. I'm so hyper and it's partly your fault. Anyway.
Wait, I like Billy too. Okay, keep going.
It's like, this is partly your fault. Like, I had another interview this morning and I was like pretty calm. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, she's
It's
doing
me.
choreography. It is you.
It's
That's why
because
I'm
I'm
like,
doing it
yes,
with you, and we started with
yeah,
Beyonce. We had
yes,
Chicago connection, so like
yes.
we
So
set
that's why
ourselves
I'm
up really
like,
good.
this is the energy for the tour. And I'm gonna let the Chicago people know, like when this is out, I was like, if you want to party with us like this
This is
on
how we're doing
stage,
it. This is how
this
we're
is
doing it.
how we're doing it.
This is how we're
This is
doing it.
how we're doing it.
Right.
Back to the story.
Okay.
Okay. So I didn't want to be my boss. That was a major moment for
Right.
me. And I instead I was like, I don't know what to do with that. But I lived in LA. There's traffic, a lot of traffic. So I would
Mm-hmm.
get off at work at 6, and I started saying, you know what, let me write for a little bit to avoid traffic. So I was
Okay.
like, I'll write for like 15 minutes after work at my desk, and then I'll go home.
Okay.
That 15 minutes turned into 30, that 30 turned into an hour, that turned into 2 hours, that turned into
Wow.
3 hours, that turned into 6 hours,
Yeah.
until I was writing at my desk, working on the keepers, like new drafts of the keepers every day from 6 to midnight for 6 months straight.
Wow.
And it became very clear to me that this wasn't to avoid traffic.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It was because I was like desperate. I had expected myself to be very successful in like
Mm-hmm.
corporate America. I had worked at Morgan Stanley. I worked
Okay.
at Bain and Company. It's like I do like to put my head down and get a job done. But the difference is those were internships.
Yep.
And this was, so it's like, why are you working hard? So you invite me back for another summer.
For another.
Why are
Right.
you
Right.
working
Right.
hard? So I get the job offer.
So get an
And I
offer.
really want
Right.
that wombat suit, and I don't want to spend my own money on it. So, so it's like, you're like, why are you working hard? Because I want jelly beans. It's
Because I
very
want
easy to
stuff.
motivate
Right.
me.
Yeah.
And I'm like a fire sign. So I'm like, yeah, let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's see
Yeah.
this instead. Oh my God. Let's not even talk about all the diss tracks going on right now. We'll do that offline.
We'll do
Anyway,
offline.
I'm so sorry, guys.
Oh my
Blame
gosh.
Ashley. She's hyping me up.
No, this is your
She's
time.
not hyping me up. She's just like, this is what I'm like around my siblings. Like, I get very hyper. So I realized how bad I wanted it. I'd
Yeah.
spent 4.5 years on it. I tried to query it, which is the process of basically like emailing it to a literary agent,
Yeah.
because literary agents are the ones who can sell it to like the big publishers.
Okay.
And I got 63 rejections.
Oh my gosh.
And this was over the course of
63.
6 months.
6'3"?
6'3".
Jeez.
6'3".
Oh my
And the
gosh.
thing is, they don't come again. Like someone will, it's a push and pull, because
Yeah.
you send out like 5 pages, and someone will be like, "Hey, send me the first 50." They'll reply 2 weeks later, and so that happens, and you're like, "Feel
It's
the rain on
working.
your skin, no one else can feel," and then and maybe 2 months later, they might say, "Hey, I liked what I read. Send me the whole thing." And so you're like, no one else can feel it. Like, I'm
Right.
so close. And then 3 months later, they'll be like, not for me. And that's when you're like, hoodie at your desk, and you're like, wake me up inside.
Evanescence.
Wake me up inside. Save me from the dark. Like,
Right. Oh my
my
gosh.
coworkers were like, what is wrong with this woman? Because it was up and down, up and down, up and
Yeah.
down. And when I got 63 rejections, at first, I was emotional about it.
Yeah.
I held my pity party, but I came to 2 big realizations.
Mhm.
One, I started doing research, because the great thing about writers is they write about their experience a
Mhm.
lot. So at that time, there were so many blogs of writers talking about what it was like for them to get a literary agent or get their first book deal.
Okay.
And I realized that I'd gotten a lot of requests and a lot of actual feedback. Because it's like, I can't remember the number of people who requested to read the full book, but I do remember getting like 10 to 12 feedback. And it's
Yeah.
not normal to get feedback, because agents are getting 100,000 to
Right.
150,000 like requests for representation a
Right.
year.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
was like, whoa, you got at least 12 people to write you back with feedback and tell
Yeah.
you that you had something, but like, this is why. And you're reading these blogs and seeing it took this person 5 books to even get one person to request their full manuscript,
Yeah.
let alone forgive it. So I was like, you got very far knowing
Right.
nothing,
For sure. For sure.
like not knowing how to write learning how to write a first draft for the first time, learning how to edit a draft for the first time,
Yeah.
learning how to write a query letter, etc. And then on the other side, like I said, I've been this big type A Nigerian
Mm-hmm.
American overachiever my entire life. So to spend almost 5 years of my life on something and fail, and then be like, whoa, I still want this? Oh,
Yeah.
that's when I was like, oh, this isn't some like secret dream. I'm like, you want this. And therefore you have to at least give yourself a year to
Yeah.
3 years to 5 years to 10 years to attack this dream
Yeah.
the way you've attacked everything else in your life, because you really want this.
Yeah.
You've never spent 5 years on something, technically fallen flat on your face, and been like, okay, I want to get up and try again.
Yeah.
So the Keepers got 63 rejections in 6 months.
Mm.
Children of Blood and Bone, and took me 4.5 years to write. After 8 months of writing Children of Blood and Bone, I got 15 offers of representation from literary agents, and then the book deal was the biggest book deal in young adult history. And I
Which
think it still
is,
might be.
yes, it is. I did my
Oh,
research, period.
nice.
Um,
Period.
which is absolutely mind blowing. Okay. And I hope you go to sleep at night like I really am that girl, because personally, see, it's a reason I'm not a New York Times bestseller with the biggest book deal, because the way I would wake up in the morning and turn my swag on and no one would be able to talk to me, because like the way you can't tell me nothing after that. Like you can't say anything to me after that. Don't talk to me. No.
Here's the thing. Okay, my computer was like, my battery's running low. Okay, we're good. Here's the thing. No, we're good now. We're safe. There's no reason you can't be.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you write.
I do. And also I'm a part of your writer's roadmap. I
Yes.
joined in 2020, so I've been
Yes.
a member forever. Now
Okay,
ask me
so
where
beautiful.
my story is.
Okay, you know what I love though? Okay, because we're gonna do our event. We're gonna have the signing. I hope it's early enough. What time is it? It starts, oh my God, it starts at 2 p.m.
Oh,
Okay,
perfect.
so we're just gonna have a dinner and we're gonna have a full writing kiki.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Okay?
Because
So yeah, we'll go into
I was just
detail.
like, there's no way. And like literally took all of my post-its off of the whiteboard.
Yeah.
I like set them up the way that you told us to. Had the
Yeah.
story out. And I was just like, girl, put it up. And literally
Yes.
just like put it away.
Yeah.
But for you, like that, I think that is so
Okay,
cool.
we're bringing it back out. Like between now and June.
And I still have the Post-its. Like I moved
Yes,
and everything
bring
since
them
then, but I
back
still have the
out.
Post-its. But I haven't looked at them since.
Bring them back out. I want you to go through the entire course again.
Okay.
And then let's talk. Because
Okay.
whether it's the story you have or another story, like,
Mhm.
let's talk. Because you're like, I could not be. And I'm like, oh, you very easily could be.
Yeah.
You very easily could
I
be.
don't know, Tommy.
And
'cause
not
if
to be
somebody
like,
told
oh,
me
it's
no
so
63
easy.
times, I don't know if I got it in me. I don't know.
But the thing is, they were right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Did I feel that at the time? No, because I was desperate for someone to tell me yes.
Yeah.
But they were right.
Yeah.
That book wasn't right for the market.
Yeah.
And why wasn't it right for the market? Because I hadn't read anything since like The Sorcerer's Stone. So when I started reading something and I picked up Red Queen and I was like, holy crap, this is where we're at?
Yeah.
I picked up An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir and I said, oh my God, this is what we can do now?
Yeah.
Boom. So there's always a missing piece. It's not about it's not yet. It's
Right.
actually not yet.
Mhm, mhm.
Even if it doesn't feel like that. Because was I some like sage, like wise, oh, if it's not this, it'll be the next one. Like I said, wake me up inside.
Right. I was sad. I was very sad.
Like everything on fire, elbow fire.
Right.
Like, no, I wasn't some calm,
Yeah.
peaceful sage. What if it's not this? If it's not God's timing?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But I can tell you with authority, and I haven't just seen it with my books. Like I've seen it with the movie. I've seen it in my life. I've
Yeah.
seen it like, so it's not about the number of rejections, because it's that whole, the whole, there's what is meant for you is like not going anywhere, but I also like the idea of like, I like the rephrasing of what is right for you is right for you.
Mm-hmm. That's so
And you're
true.
just searching for what's right for you.
That's so true. That's so true.
So so you can and you will, and we will talk about this and make a
Okay.
master plan, and I love that. But yeah,
Okay.
that is the beautiful story of the keepers.
Okay. Okay. So you mentioned we talked about you pivoting into Children of Blood and Bone, how that got published, this
Yes.
amazing world shattering record breaking deal that you got. Also, side note, are you when people talk about this like in articles and interviews and stuff, are you ever in your mind like, y'all get out my pockets? Like, dang, stop telling the world my
uh
business. Cause now people
I
know
think
like you like got this huge deal. I personally probably would be like, stop telling everybody.
I used to feel so much more shy. That
Okay.
was so grammatically incorrect, but who cares? I used to feel much shyer.
Right.
Okay. I
Same
used to
thing.
feel very like, because I'm just like, oh, this, and like, and it's like, I was like, no, I need that money to get more hot dogs. So now, now I feel like I really stand in the light of uh, who I am.
Yeah.
And that's like, and I think the other thing I've learned is that light isn't limited to like sitting in an interview with you. It's not
Yeah.
limited to like a photo shoot. It's not limited to like being across from Robin Roberts in Good Morning America. It's like
Yeah.
that light is with me when I cook eggs dancing to Cowboy Carter. That light
That's
is with me
true.
when I'm in the shower singing. That light is with me when I'm napping. That light is with me when I'm dreaming about this new story world. So
Yeah.
it's my light, and it was a journey. It was a journey to get there. And
Yeah.
it even took one of my best friends being like, who's always had to pull it out of me and be like, "You're you. Why would you show up as anything less than you?"
Yeah. Yeah. But that's
Because I'm
so
like, "Oh, is
good
it
though.
weird to go on a like date if this guy like knows that I write?" She's like, "You just write. You are a number one New York Times Hugo motherfucker. You better. Are you anyone else? Are you
Right.
gonna be anyone
Yes. I
else?"
stand
And
for
I'm
this
like,
friend.
"Damn, I'm gonna tell her, she's a good one. She's a good one." And I'm like, "Damn, you're right." And so
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, I'm not. I am me. This
Yeah.
is me.
Yeah.
And this is all a part of me. And luckily, I'm no longer in a place where I feel like it defines me."
Mm.
And that's why when we talked about earlier, it's like I can't sit here and be like, "This is my mission. This is why I'm here. This is what I
Yeah.
was meant to do." Because I'm like, that's so bigger than me, and it just feels a bit arrogant to assume what you were created for. It's like
Yeah.
I can say like I do believe my purpose is storytelling, and
For
I
sure.
believe that has been reaffirmed very strongly.
Mm-hmm.
But as you say, I'm saying I believe,
Yeah.
because I am no longer like I know everything and I've got to be everything and this. I'm like, no, no, no. You just gotta be you. You just gotta nap. You
You
just
just
gotta write. Yeah,
heavy
you
on the
just
nap.
gotta nap.
Heavy
I
on the
wasn't
nap.
napping.
Heavy on the
I
nap.
wasn't sleeping for like
Heavy on the nap.
7 years writing this trilogy. So I'm like, you just gotta nap. You just
Yeah.
gotta make some salmon.
You
You just gotta watch like your whatever version of Naomi Campbell like mentoring slash yelling at girls on the face.
Right, right, right.
Dance to your Beyonce and live your
And
life.
live your
Pet a
life.
dog. Go in
Yeah,
the sun.
for sure. For
Like
sure.
it's not that complicated, girl.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. So, I want to talk about this new book that's coming out. I am
yes,
gassed about it. So switching gears just a little bit, the
yes,
Legacy of Orisha series is obviously a trilogy, which we know,
yes,
with the newest book, The Children of Anguish and Anarchy, hitting bookshelves on June 25th.
yes,
Without giving too much away, but I kind of hope you give something away, but I know you probably won't. Can you share any challenges or maybe even surprises that you
yes.
encountered while you were crafting this part of the story, and then how you
Yeah.
navigated that?
Yeah, honestly, the I would say the biggest challenge wasn't even creatively, it was life.
Okay.
And I say that because I had worked so hard over the first two books, over the 3 years of the first two books, and I had
Mm-hmm.
kind of like worked myself into the bone or
Okay.
worked myself down to the bone. And so for the first time, I was coming up against like health complications of like, oh, you
Mm.
cannot work the way you've been working and you have
Yeah.
to learn around that. So I think it's in a way, book three was the most transformative book I've ever written because it transformed my entire way of living,
Mm.
and the entire way I had to approach life and approach myself.
Yeah.
So the challenge was like life. It was like outside of the pages. And then I think I also just felt like I hated leaving the fans waiting.
Yeah.
Like I felt so I didn't realize till I turned the third book in how much stress I had been carrying for seven
Wow.
years.
Yeah.
Because it was about like 2 weeks after and I'm outside and I'm like, what is that the
This
sun?
is is that grass?
And I'm like, is it always just like I hadn't felt what it was like to just not have like
That.
50 pounds on my
Yeah.
shoulders and for 7 years, almost a decade.
Yeah.
And so when that was released and I was like, wow,
Yeah. This is
whoa,
life.
like look at my hands. Like, whoa, where have I been?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so it was actually like outside of the text and outside of the story.
Okay.
Um, I would say those were the biggest challenges.
Okay.
And now I'm just like, I don't, there's that's partly why, even though I get really hyped, I think that's partly why there's kind of this big Zen side of me because
Yeah.
I'm like, girl, I was like, she'd been stressed. She did that already.
Yeah.
She's not doing that again.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, so I was one of those fans that was like, okay, so backtrack. I read Blood and Bone twice, and
Yeah.
I read Virtue and Vengeance once, but I'm reading it again
Yes.
for, book three, Anguish and Anarchy. So I was like, slowly, not weirdly checking your Insta, like, is it coming
Yes.
soon? But like, I am
Yes.
not that fan that's gonna be like, tell me where you at, sis. Like,
Yes.
I'm not that
Yes.
person. Because
I
one
got both.
no, because one thing about me, you're not about to rush the creative process. Let my girl
Yeah.
cook and let her do what
Yes.
she needs to do, because I know
Let him
this
cook.
story is going to be
Let him
amazing. So
cook.
let us wait. Let us be a little
Yes.
patient. And
Yes.
there was a day you put CAA on something, on like a notebook or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, 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 yeah,
When
yeah.
I say I spiraled so bad, I was sitting there writing out, like, okay, what could this be? I'm even putting my name in it, right? Ashley, which
Yes.
makes no sense whatsoever.
Children of Ashley.
And right, but like, what would that go with? So I'm looking up a names that relates to the story. Could not think of anything, right? Delusional. Then you update us again, like about a month later, and you share the name of the book, and you shared the cover. The sound that comes out of my body was like a war cry, Tomi, like a battle cry. I was with it. Like, I'm like, oh, let's go. Oh, we're going then.
Yes.
Let's go.
We
This
are.
is how the story is going to
We
end.
are.
I don't know what's going to
Yes.
happen, but I'm ready to throw my book
Yes.
around the room,
Yes.
cry, laugh,
We also
throw
get to
up.
get you an early version now that you're moderating.
Yes, please. Oh my gosh,
So,
that would be
yeah, so like
amazing.
afterwards hit me with like email me with your address and like I'll
Okay.
send that to my publisher and we'll get you an early version.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it is. It's this the beautiful thing is like all three books. I felt for a while, for maybe it was a couple years ago, I was like, I think I have three tomes inside of me,
Mhm.
like three actual tomes.
Yeah.
And even though Children of Blood and Bone, Children of Virtue and Vengeance, and Children of Anguish and Anarchy are three books,
Yep.
now that the whole story's out, it just feels like one big tome to
One
me.
big. Yep. Yep.
Yes, like you could actually put all that together and
Yeah.
just go and mind you, you literally could because each book, I mean, I think book two takes place like 2 weeks after the last page of book one. Book three takes place if it's not 2, I think it might be 2 weeks. So it's like
Okay.
you literally could print it
Keep
as
going.
one big
Yeah.
volume. Because yeah, some people were like, "Is the size different?" I was like, "Don't worry about the size. The story is here. The story is here. The
Not to
story.
worry
It's
about the
one
size.
story."
I'm sitting
Yeah,
here
they're
like,
worried about
please,
everything.
please let it be long, please.
And I love my fans, and I love, and part of me too, because I was like, "Oh, 700 pages," but I'm like, "No, this is the story."
Right? No.
And like, this is the
no.
story. This is what happened, and this is her story.
Yeah.
And I now understand. It'll be so like refreshing to talk about this in like 4 months
Yep.
and be able to be like, "What's the story of the trilogy?" And I was like, "Oh, it's the story of a girl who became," and that'll be dot dot dot.
Right. Right.
But
right.
yeah, it's refreshing, and it's, I was talking to someone else, and I'm like, yeah, they're like, how does it feel? I was like, well, honestly, it feels, I was like, if I picture these books, I picture me writing them, and that
Yeah.
was isolation.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can picture the room, the 2 rooms Children of Blood and Bone were written in. I can picture the rooms, and they're always dark because I kind of have a vampire writing aesthetic. That like Children of Virtue and Vengeance was written in. I can picture the dark rooms Children of Anguish and Anarchy was written
Yeah.
in. So it's like me alone in the dark writing,
Yeah.
and then all that stress. So you remove all that stress, you step out into the sun, and like suddenly I'm face to face with this incredible community.
Yeah.
I have people like you who have been with me like from the beginning, waiting years, patiently or not patiently. It's like,
Yeah.
I love you all. Because it is, I remember someone said, if they were talking about a musician, it was like a music blogger,
Okay.
but they were like, sis, it is a blessing to have people out here asking for your work and your
Yeah.
art. And I was like, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So I'm like, thank you. I was like, you
Yeah.
stress me the F
You
out, but
stress me,
thank
but
you.
thank you, girl.
Thank you. And then and I will say though, the vast majority of my readers and their messaging has been compassion.
Yeah. Good.
They're like, hey, I just want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Or like, take as much time as
Take as
you
much
need
time.
to make
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
And like, so it's like, you guys have really met me with so much love. And like, I literally started crying yesterday during an interview, and I was like, oh God. And I don't like to cry on interviews because it's like, I did my mascara.
I did my
So I didn't do this to cry. Anyway, but she was like, is there anything you would like to tell your fans? And I was like, or no, she didn't say that. She goes, is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like to say? And I was like, I don't think so. I guess I would just want to give a message to the fans and tell them how much it means, how much it truly means to me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, waiting, this is not the industry standard, and you guys have embraced like me and this series and this story and this trilogy with so much love.
Yeah.
So much love and
Yeah.
so much support. And I was like, and you don't know how much you mean to me. And
Aw.
like, that's why I really love the moments when a book comes out and I
Yeah.
get to talk to you. I get to see you. I'm enjoying it even on social media, be like all the funny TikToks with people would be like,
Yeah.
Miss Ma'am,
Miss Ma'am.
I need this. And then it's like, you made me laugh. I'm sending you a signed book. And they're like, oh my God. But I'm like, no, because I'm sitting here cackling.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
it
I
means
love the
something.
threats. I love when people yell
Yeah.
at me over the internet. They're
Oh
like, I
no,
will fight
we're
you
going
for
hard.
what you did. And I'm like, I love you. Like,
Yeah.
I love you. I love you. So
Aw.
I'm so excited to put, I guess it feels more than any other book. One, without that 7-year stress and wait,
For sure.
I finally feel a sense of pride and accomplishment
Good.
that I couldn't feel when the first book was published or the second book was published, because when the first book was published, I was worried about the second book. When the second
Yeah.
book was published, I was worried about the third book, and that wasn't going to be done. And that worry didn't evaporate until I
Yeah.
turned it in. So that was 7 years of like horrible stress.
For sure.
So being free of that, plus getting to connect
An
with you and like,
experience. Yep.
yeah, I'm like, it's a celebration. It's
For
joyful,
sure.
and we have a community, and we have a community who's been here for 7 years, and we have a new community of like, I
Brand new
just read the
readers.
first 2
Yep.
books. I can't wait for the third, and so it's like we have this coming together,
Yeah.
and we have the movie
The
coming,
movie's
and like,
coming. Yep. Yep.
so I'm
Yep.
just like, it's just growing, and I love this fandom. I love
Yeah.
this fandom. I love my Tominators, my Magi. I'm
Yeah.
like, such beautiful hearts,
For sure.
such beautiful people.
Oh no, I
Slay.
go hard for this. I bought like I said, I read the first one twice. I read the second one once, but I have two copies of each.
Yes.
And I've been saving one copy because when you do events, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like find her and meet up to get
Yes.
all three of my books signed.
Yes.
And I've never been able to catch you while you were out, you know, like marketing the book.
Well,
And so now this feels so much better being able to talk to you about the books. Oh,
and don't forget we're going to be on stage and
then
eating
right,
Geo at an undisclosed location.
coming soon, we'll announce.
Undisclosed.
Okay.
Before we have people being like, "Hey, I casually heard on the podcast you were getting Geo after this."
Right, where's that?
Like, talk about a full circle moment.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, Ashley, I experienced this. I had one beautiful fan. Her name is Nikki. I met her, I think it was at Comic-Con 2 years ago. I saw her at the Texas Library Association. And she's like, I was just hoping I would see you again. And I was like, I'm manifesting this, that I see her again. And I get the third book. And I'm like, here's the only copy I'm allowed to give out today.
Yeah.
You know,
This
so
is
the
for
fact
you.
that you were like, I gotta meet her before I die, and like in a month we're gonna be on stage together.
Yeah. Oh no. I literally cannot wait to call my mom
Yes.
and my dad and be like, guess what?
Yes.
Because I
Guess
know they are
what?
so sick of me talking about this book for the last 7 years. And the way I ordered Anguish and Anarchy the day that you announced it, I did the pre-order. And my dad was like, why would you order a book almost a year in advance? Because you don't understand. I needed to be on my doorstep the day that it releases. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like,
Yes.
and I'm going to be ready to read the entire thing in one sitting,
Yes.
you know? So I am so excited for this new release to come out. I'm excited to see how this story ends. I know you've been with these characters and in this world and with this story for the last few years, but you mentioned it and you kind of talked about it just a little bit. Obviously, with Anguish and Anarchy completing the trilogy, I can just imagine the pressure you felt to deliver this like great book, you know?
Yes.
So I guess my question is, how do you manage this expectation as an author? And then
Ooh.
what is your mindset, I guess, going into what was your mindset going into writing this final part of the chapter, final part of the book,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And then making sure you were staying true to the story, but also like closing it at the same time. Like, how do you manage all
Yeah.
of that and still get your fingers going?
I think I will say this third book, more than any other book, it took a community,
Mm,
especially because I had so many health battles during it. So like it really took a community to keep me, to just surround me,
yeah.
and believe in me, especially when I was down. I think creatively, the only way I can create is being true to myself.
Mm,
And that sounds like such a Disney Channel line, like
no.
a 90s Disney Channel. But what I mean by that is like I compare my books to like Taylor Swift albums because whatever I'm writing about, the story is the story.
Right.
There is a character, there is a goal, there are obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
That is the technical, the objective
Mm-hmm.
part of the story. We'll call that like the chicken.
Okay.
But the seasoning is whatever I'm going through or whatever I've just gone through.
Okay.
And so we can look at someone like T Swift and be like, oh, this is about this boy, this is
Right.
about this time, this is about when this person said this thing about her and then recorded that and put that there, and then there was all the emojis. You don't really know that with me. But I put all that
The stuff
seasoning in there.
Okay. Okay.
So that helps me, that is at least how I create.
Okay.
And so it's like the support of the community and then just expressing whatever's on my heart.
Mm,
That's the only way I know how to write.
okay.
And so what was on my heart with book 3 is different than what was on my heart with book 2, which is
Right.
different than what was on my heart with book 1, which is different than what's on my heart with book 4.
Yeah.
Which is a different series. I have to keep clarifying that because people keep
Completely
going, book
different.
4! And I'm like, nope,
What do you mean?
nope. Nope. I was like, you think I went through all this just to have you being like, where's the fourth book? Where's the fourth book? Where's the fourth book? I was like, you will never get it. I was like, even if you get a trilogy, I will tell you it's one book, and then I will surprise you with another.
I'm gonna give you some
I will
love.
never again have you in my DMs. Hey, Tomi, how are you? So just checking. Where's the
No.
I love you. Thank you. Never again.
It's done. It's done.
I owe you nothing. I owe you nothing else.
Yeah. No, you're right though. You owe us nothing, but thank you for
I love
giving
you.
us what you gave us.
But I will never, ever, ever.
No, I understand. I can only
We're doing
imagine.
this one at a time.
I can only imagine
one at a time.
like what that was like though. Like in my mind, I'd be like, man, because I'm an overthinker and I will like freak my own self out sometimes.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I'm like, man, if I hit it out the park the second time and the first time and the second time, I'd be like writing like, oh my God, like girl, you may not have a little razzle dazzle left. You know, I just be so in my head about it. But what you said was so true. You have to stay true to your creative process and what you are going through and what you want to put in the book, regardless of what all of us might think about it. You just keep putting yourself into that story. And that's what's going to make
That's all I can bring you.
Yep.
And yeah, I just think I'd say this a lot, especially to my writing students. I'm like, the best stories have a beating heart.
Yeah.
So all I can do, and I think all artists have bleeding hearts. So I'm like, here's how my heart's bleeding.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel that. And whether it's bleeding for the world or it's bleeding from my own personal life, it's like that's what makes it into the stories. That is what is seasoned through whatever the plot or the action might be.
For sure.
And that's what, I mean, I love doing it, and I feel so grateful. I honestly feel so grateful that I am I don't know the words, allowed to, granted the opportunity to, blessed to. I don't know the right words, but I just feel so grateful to be able to do this. I feel so grateful. It's like it's not even the dream come true. It's like it's just extreme gratitude. Yeah.
You're gonna make me teary-eyed.
Don't mess up that pretty makeup. Cry later. Cry when we stop recording.
So are you still okay on time? We're a little bit over. I just want to make sure like you're good. It's 1:09. Well, 2:09 your time.
Let me just check. I have something at like 2:30, so I have like 5 minutes.
Okay. Let me like skip down to some other questions that I think are a little bit more like related to like listeners that might be listening. So for new writers listening who dream of being published, and for writers who are too afraid to start, but they too dream of being published, what's the best piece of advice you can give them?
I honestly, because this is so recent and because I have a whole class on this, I would say go to thewritersroadmap.net. I'm going to make sure we have a mailing list up because we're going to be hosting a free workshop soon. And it's my entire creative process. And then follow me on TikTok.
Okay.
Because if TikTok disappears, we'll figure it out. But I do, I have my writing vlogs, I have writing advice. And so I do that just so you're caught up. But I would say be reading.
Okay.
You're ready to query your novel. You're ready to try and get a literary agent and get published when you love your novel as much as your favorite novel.
Okay.
And for me, that was An Ember in the Ashes.
Okay.
I knew I was ready to try and get representation for Children of Blood and Bone when I was like, you know what? I love the adventure of this story as much as I love An Ember in the Ashes. I believe these stories deserve to be on the same shelf with each other. As far as getting to that, read, write.
Okay. That's really good advice.
That's it.
That's
read, write. Like those are the concrete. And when writing sprints.
Okay.
Get a cute little timer, set it for 5 minutes, write for those 5 minutes.
Okay.
If you do that once a day for 5 days, eventually you're going to set that to 7.5 minutes. Then you're going to set it to 10 minutes. Then you're going to set it to 15. When I tell you I started this year doing 5-minute writing sprints.
Yeah.
And now those are 55-minute writing sprints and I can do 5 of them. It's just like a muscle in the gym. We're overthinkers. We get
Yeah.
in our head. There's so much. Writers are uniquely capable of spending so much time not writing.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So it's like, get out of your head, get a physical baking timer, very cute, Amazon,
And start writing.
and then just, yes, set it for 5 minutes, write.
Okay.
Like, find a writing routine that it becomes pleasurable and peaceful to you. Because that's how I feel about writing now. It's actually like a pleasurable experience.
Yeah.
It used to be anxiety ridden. So I had to completely rehabilitate my creative writing process, and I teach that to my mentorship students. So
Okay.
that would be my thing. And then I guess validate yourself right now.
Okay.
Validate yourself right now.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question before you go. I am a reflective person, and one thing that I talk about a lot on the podcast is being able to go back to your younger self and tell her something. So I am curious to know if you could travel back in time to visit your younger self before the book deals, before this world-changing series, if there is anything you could tell yourself, oh, your picture, you look so cute. If you could tell her something, what would you tell her?
I would say I love you so much and I'm so proud of you.
Mm, that's sweet.
Yeah.
That's
I
really
love
sweet.
you so much and I'm so proud of you.
That's really sweet.
Yeah, she's grown a lot, but she's grown a lot in here. Because our inner children are still there.
For
So
sure.
I'm like, I'm so proud of you.
For
Oh,
sure. Well, I'm
yeah.
proud of you too, Tomi. And
Thank you,
I just have
Ashley.
to give you your flowers. Thank you so much for one, agreeing to be a part of the podcast, but also putting your work out into the world. Your book lit up my life and it changed everything for me. So thank you for that. And I am not a girl that has a lot of favorites, but this is my favorite series of all time. You are my favorite author of all time. And so being able to sit down with you and talk to you directly and tell you how you impacted my life means absolutely everything to me. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you continue to do. And I'm so excited for the movie and for this book to come out and everybody to read it and just
I'm
discover
excited to eat
who
pizza
you
with
are.
you.
Right. And I'm excited to get pizza.
Oh, you have a beautiful, beautiful spirit, and it's
Thank
like it
you.
takes a lot for me to get that wild on an interview. So I just can't wait to hear more about you and your
Yes.
story. And thank you for all the beautiful words and affirmation. Like I receive it. I've like bow and arrows to the heart. Um, really, really. So thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
yes, please hit me like right after this with
I
the best
will.
mailing
I,
address and we'll start talking details.
okay.
But I am really looking forward to eating pizza with you.
Me too.
AshMedia.